All right, hey folks. So today we're talking about the differences between pyramid training and straight sets. So firstly, thanks for making it onto my channel. And if you have any questions or comments about today's discussion, please pop them down below. It'd be good to hear from you and your perspective on this topic. Now, if you'd also like to work with me, there is a link in the description. So let's get on. Now, firstly, I just want to say right from the beginning, there are going to be no surprises here at the end. The bottom line is, if you are focused on progression and you are making progress over time, that is the most important thing. And that is ultimately the deciding factor in whether you progress or not. And what's better is really most a matter of personal preference out of these two. What I want to do is I want to highlight the pros and cons, and then you can perhaps see which fits your personality a little bit better. That's the idea for today, or at least you know what to expect if you've not tried one or the other. Now, for a perspective on my background on this, I've mostly always done straight sets because I've come from a powerlifting and strongman background. Now, recent years, I've done more bodybuilding, the past 3 years or so. And for that, I've utilized more pyramid training, which has been really fun. It's a good way to train, and there are various benefits I'll get into. But it's a stimulating way of training. You can see why bodybuilders do it that way, and I'll go into the psychology behind it in a moment. But yeah, just to reiterate, a lot of this is just personal preference, but that doesn't mean it's unimportant. You have to find the thing which works for your psychology, because they both work for your biology. So you've got to stick to something for a long time for it to work, and you've got to be able to put some hard work into it. So these type of videos are important for that reason, because they let you know a bit about what your preference might be. So let's begin. Now, firstly, I just wanted to describe what pyramid training was and is, and what straight sets is, before we move on to the pros and cons. So pyramid training looks a little bit like this. You start off with something like a first set, which is around about in the higher rep range, let's say. Okay, that could be 15, it could be 12, but just on the higher end. Okay, that's the base of the pyramid. So the more reps at the lower weight. And then you go up in weight a little bit, and your reps drop a little bit. And then you go up a little bit more, your reps drop a little bit more. And depending on how many sets you're doing as part of the pyramid, you might end there. Or you might do a further fourth set where you go a little bit heavier with a little bit less reps. And again, your pyramid might end there. Or you might optionally do one back-off set, which a lot of people tend to do at the end. So a pyramid would look like this. Something like 3 or 4 sets with progressively heavier weights. As the weights get heavier, the reps drop off. Simple, nice and basic. So as per the example on the screen here, that's kind of an example of what a pyramid might look like. And the optional set at the end is to do a back-off set. Now, when I did pyramid training, I mostly did it like this. So I would do a set of 15, a set of 12, a set of 9, a set of 6, and then an optional back-off set, which would be something like a 12. Occasionally, that would be a drop set from the set 4. But that's generally how I would do it. And I would ensure that all these sets were challenging. So they were all sort of like failure or close to failure, and that's generally how I did it. So I found that was a good way of training. But before we go into pros and cons, let's talk about straight sets and what they are. But that's what pyramid training is. Now, straight sets, probably a little bit easier to understand. You have anywhere between 1 to 4 to 5 warm-up sets, which get progressively heavier. The difference here is they're not challenging. The warm-up sets are not supposed to be challenging. They're just supposed to get some blood into the muscle. And then you begin your actual working sets. So you see here in this example, we've got 3 working sets here, which come after the warm-up sets. So in the end, you actually end up doing more sets. And I found that about straight sets is you typically do more actual sets, because with pyramid training, your warm-up sets are almost incorporated into the set and rep scheme. So your first set of 15 is pretty much a warm-up for the next set, and you keep going on. Whereas with straight sets, you need more specific warm-ups. So I found with straight sets, I ended up doing more work as long as I had a reasonable amount of straight sets. So there we go. That is straight sets. Just picking a weight, your top weight, after you've warmed up, and doing the sets across. Now let's get to the interesting bit and talk about the pros and cons. So one thing I found which was really interesting about the pyramid style of training is that every rep target had its own goal attached to it. And I found that quite stimulating. For those of you who are familiar with Jordan Peters' work, one of the things he says that's so beneficial about his top set, back off set approach is that every single exercise, you have a goal for every rep range. So your top set, you've got a goal to beat. You back off set, you've got a goal to beat. You don't just have one weight with like 5 sets and then you're trying to beat all of them, because it's very difficult to do that psychologically and physically. So with the pyramid training, you've got basically a rep target for however many sets you're doing, whether you're doing the 5 sets or whether you're doing 3 sets, whatever you're doing, you've got a rep target to beat every single time. And that's quite mentally, it's quite stimulating, because it's really easy to focus in on your PRs. Like if I did 100 kilos for 12, 10, 10 in a session, and I have to beat that, psychologically, there's less focus on every individual set. It's just a matter of mastering that 100. Whereas with pyramid training, if I did 3 sets at say 80, 100, 120, I've got to beat those 3 rep targets every single time. Mentally, that's quite stimulating, because I've got that concrete number to aim for. And I know from being a coach is if you give people really simple targets, it becomes very easy for them to focus in and hone in. Say, okay, first set, you've got to beat this number for this number of reps. Second set, you've got to beat this for this. Just beating a number of sets across, that becomes a little bit more problematic. And we'll get into that in a moment. So it can be more mentally stimulating. The next thing is it provides more actual physical variety of weight. So you go from a lighter weight to a slightly heavier weight. Now, you don't go to a super heavy weight because you're going to be pre-fatigued from the lighter weights, depending on how hard you go, but you end up getting a range of different weights. Now, that potentially can be stimulating for hypertrophy. So if I'm going to do a pyramid, I will always tend to go for a very high rep range to begin with, and then end at a lowish rep range. So I tend to go for between 15 to 6, because then at least I'm getting a wide variety of weight. And I feel that's potentially may offer some benefits with regards to hypertrophy. Now, the next thing is I saw a study many years ago, and it was looking at minor weight changes in Olympic athletes. So it compared people, these were high-level Olympic athletes, doing strength training, which you just had the same weight and for sets across, like they were doing doubles and triples, versus strength development where the weights were slightly staggered. So the study showed people doing, say, like 100 kilos, and then the next set 102.5, and then the next set 97.5. So just hovering around the same weight, but not quite the same weight. And they found that for whatever reason, those who changed the weight every set had better strength gains. I found that really interesting, and that study's always stuck by me. I can't for the life of me remember where I found it. So if anyone does know which study I'm talking about, link it down below. But I found that really interesting. So they theorized in that study that it was potentially the mentally stimulating aspects of the changing of weights. They also said it may well be more accommodation, because with slight changes of weight, your body has to adjust to the weight slightly and lift it in a different way, basically. So you tackle a 100 kilo bench press differently than what you tackle a 50 kilo bench press, for example. The body sees it differently. It moves slightly differently. It might not even be visible to the eye, but it moves slightly differently. So because of that, you get a more complete strength development. That's what they theorized anyway. They couldn't really test whether it's true or not, but they just found that the variety helps with strength gains, not hypertrophy, but strength gains. Okay, so those are the positives. It can be mentally stimulating, might provide more hypertrophy due to a wider range of weights, and also may well be better for strength development. Now, the next thing is the negatives for pyramid training. It can get a little bit confusing. It's a lot more to track. Like if you're tracking rep PRs on 4 different rep ranges, that can be a lot to track. So it's a lot of writing stuff down. So one of the reasons that I almost fell out of love with it in the end was it was just a lot of writing stuff down. And I would rather just pick a weight and just smash it all the way through. So there's a lot of writing stuff down, and also it's a lot of constantly adjusting equipment. So whereas when you finish a set, you ideally just want to rest, walk around a little bit, you have to change your weights, change your equipment, and also write down your various rep records. That's a lot. It's more than I want to do in between sets. It's more mentally stimulating than I want to do. I just want to focus on my next set in that time. So that is a potential downside. It might be better if you're training with somebody and you can communicate with sets and reps and changing things, if you have a good understanding with them. And the final negative to the pyramid training is oftentimes the first few sets are not challenging. So I've been talking about the first few sets being challenging, but oftentimes the first few sets just aren't challenging. People will do the 15 as a warm-up set, and the 12 as a warm-up set, and 8 as a feeler, and then the 6 as a working set. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the volume is drastically reduced, and you have to be aware of that. That's all. So yeah, I think that's probably the pros and cons. I've put one more pro in for pyramid analysis, which I've just thought of, which is that it generally felt safer because I was doing a lot more work in that higher end of rep ranges. But there you go. So that's my final pros and cons for pyramid analysis. Now let's have a look at straight sets. Straight sets, firstly, very simple. Now, simple is generally good when it comes to lifting weights. Oftentimes, you are just trying to survive your sessions, especially if it's a leg session, you're just really trying to get through it. If you have a whole bunch of things to focus on, and let's say you're dieting, you've just been at work all day, simple is good. Okay, I would rather in that case, when somebody feels overwhelmed, I'd rather them just warm up and then stick the weight on the bar and just go and hit that weight again and again and again and again and move on. Like when I'm warmed up for, say, the leg press, I'm warmed up, I've done all my warm-up sets, I'm settled into the machine, I don't just want to keep getting up and changing the weight and then that's it, I'm off. I would rather just have the weight set and then just sit there and do all my sets for the next 10 minutes. So it makes it very simple and there's less changing of equipment, less changing of weights. And the final sort of pro I see for this is that you really do master the weight before you move on. So let's say I've just done 100 kilos for, 12, 10, 8 on the bench press. I've mastered that weight. I can successfully move on to 102.5 week after, and I'm good. It makes things very predictable in that way. Once I've mastered the weight, I can move on. Final thing is a negative, and there's not much really for straight sets. I suppose the negatives are potentially you don't maybe get the potential benefits from the pyramid training where you move the weights and it's more stimulating. But straight sets, negative is it can potentially be boring. Some people can find it boring. For some people, if they've done a set, they don't just want to hang around for a couple of minutes resting while they wait for the next set, and that's understandable. I get that. I can relate to that. So if you've just done a set and all you've got to do is just sit there with the equipment at your feet or racked and just sit there for 2 minutes, for some people that can be a bit challenging. Like they don't want to just sit there, they want to do something else, and I get that. Let's say you've got very good cardiovascular conditioning and you recover after a minute, but you need to wait a couple of minutes because you won't be able to put in such a good effort. Like I get that all the time. I'm in pretty reasonable cardiovascular shape, and oftentimes I will want to go within 45 seconds, but I know that if I did go within 45 seconds, my next set would be trash. So and the difference between 90 seconds to 120 seconds for me is quite extreme as well. So I like to wait that full 2 minutes, but yeah, it can get a bit boring. So in that case, maybe pyramid sets are better because with straight sets, you're just not doing much for the couple of minutes. And I think that can make a difference. So in my final conclusion, as I said right at the beginning, I don't think there's a massive difference in terms of what you're going to get. It's more about individualizing it to you as a person. What do you actually like? And all I've tried to do today is lay out some of the pros and cons, which might sway you one way or another, or at least maybe get you to try one thing. I find that pyramid training tends to be a bit more like old school, a bit more maybe bro, not in a negative way, by the way, but more sort of like people talk about it a lot more. It's more gym law, whereas straight set seems to be coming more from the evidence-based camp and that type of thing. So if you are more of a bro, you might not have done much straight sets. If you are more of an evidence-based person, you might not have done much pyramid training. So it's worth experimenting. Just know that the bottom line is, as long as you're progressing over time, it doesn't really matter. It's more about what keeps you mentally stimulated, what keeps you motivated, what keeps you able to put in that massive amount of effort in the gym. Just to give you an example, just before we end, leg training is a perfect example for leg presses. In those 2 minutes you're resting between sets, all you're trying to do is not die. So that might be the case where straight sets are better. If it's something like a bench press or curls, you may want to spend the couple of minutes in between sets, changing weights, writing things down. That's just a working example for you. It's worth thinking about, but this video is running quite long, so I'm going to call it there. If you found that interesting and you made it this far, and you haven't subscribed, please do so and subscribe. And if you've got any ideas for another video, pop them down below, and I'll see about covering the best ones. All right, folks, I'll call it there.